Good evening and welcome to the November 1st, 2023 Litchfield School Board meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Review and revision of the agenda. Has there been any changes?
No, I think we livened up a couple of links today, but those are all for presentations, so we'll go through them with you.
Okay. And then for the consent agenda, are there any committee reports or committee discussions that folks want to move and have in our old business section?
I don't, but I did update the PERC report, the grading and reporting committee report, the facilities committee report, and I added one for, I added one for Litchfield's curriculum committee.
Okay.
So those are all up to date.
Budget and CIP are also up to date.
Do you have any?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. So everyone is responsible for reading your reports, but we won't need to have any discussions. Mr. Plansky will be joining us shortly. He had a travel delay. Summary of non-public actions from October 18th, 2023. Ms. Ames made a motion to approve the October 4th, 2023 non-public session minutes as amended. Ms. Harrison seconded the motion and the motion passed 4-0-0. Tonight for presentations and recognitions, we have Ms. Fowler, who is here to talk to us regarding student services, and then we have Ms. Woodman here to talk about curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So I think you said Ms. Fowler is going to go first. Come on up, Sophia. Welcome. You can switch them up if you want.
It can be, thanks. Update, I provided the numbers of IEPs by school. So GMS currently has 77 students, LMS 72, and CHS has 86. There are 13 either out-of-district charter or private schools students there. Total active in the district is 248 students. The total enrollment for Litchfield School District, which does not include the private schools, is 1,217. So district updates, MTSSB is off and I'm going to say training. We have been working really hard at kind of establishing and starting to meet and learn more about MTSSB, which is a multi-tier system of support for behavior. There are two training things currently going on in tandem. One is through the NHDOE at Plymouth State, which is a very robust program and is walking very slowly and very gently with each of the teams that are going up. And then there's the NHA SEA training in Concord, which is a 3-day training. On the first day of training, she said that she was cramming a year's worth of information into one day, which was a lot, to say the least. So the Plymouth State one, from everything that I hear, it's going really well and everybody's enjoying it, and the fact that it's going so slowly. I included a link for the New Hampshire MTSSB. That has in it what we refer to as a toolkit that we've been kind of unpacking and going slowly with. It starts with if you don't have anything and you've never established, to working through creating committees and people and who you should have and that kind of thing. So we're really at that like step one, I think it's like 1B maybe, and that we've decided we needed to have MTSSB, but also that what do we need to do next? So we're moving along very slowly. MTSSB is like a 5-year plan, so it's not something that happens overnight. Having continued weekly meetings with a lot of the new case managers to provide support. Some of them have started asking, do we have to continue to meet? I'm like, if you feel fully supported, that's great. But we had so many come on new this year that I've been meeting with them weekly and making sure that I've been available as much as humanly possible at each of the schools. And then this year I brought in a training on emotional behavioral disorders through Cirriculum with the increase in the significant number of behaviors that we've been having at each of the schools involving whether it's general education or special education, but this is specifically a special education training. What it's provided and is teaching, I did the training myself before through a different school district. What it does is it really highlights how emotional behavioral disorders kind of intersect with education, which is very interesting because emotional behavioral disorders are not a constant. There can be quite an ebb and flow to them. It's a 6-part series. There are roughly 50 participants from surrounding school districts. Because Campbell High School is the host, or Litchfield is the host, we're able to really highlight like the food service program through Campbell High School, which has been phenomenal. So there's been a lot of behind the scenes work about that. But we have roughly 50 participants that are coming from surrounding districts. And then the state did a walkthrough of our S3 resource room at Campbell. So a year ago was the application for that S3 resource room. And then once the year is up, they come to a walkthrough, have conversations with Mr. Hess and myself, and then I sent them some information. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I'm hoping to have a meeting this week or next week to touch base if there's anything follow-up that I need to do for that S3 program. And then CPI training. So one of the things that I realized with the district is that a lot of the CPI trained personnel all expire at the same time, which makes it extremely difficult to have a number of people trained in each of the buildings. So this year what I've started doing with Danielle Scholes and myself as certified trainers is staggering it. So we train 3 people at a time. So instead of having a mass group of 40 people then expire for CPI training, we only have 3 expire. And then that way with the staggered, we're able to have those smaller groups. It also makes the training go a little bit faster. So there's a 2-hour online prior to doing it. And then we're able to do, because you only have to see 3 people do the actions and that kind of thing, that we're able to then knock out the training in between 5 to 6 hours instead of 8 to 9 hours. So it's cutting that, but then we're also able to do it in small pockets, so we're not taking away a majority of staff on one given day or having to give up a full day of in-house like training in another way.
Can you explain a little bit more about what the S3 room is at Campbell, and then a little bit about what CPI training is, just for anybody who...
So the S3 room, the S3 is just the name of a resource room. So the state has 2 approvals for special education classrooms. One is a resource room, and the other is a self-contained program. So it has the classification of a resource room. It just has a name to it. The S is for Student Support Services, I believe. However, we're contemplating changing the name to that. The reason for the name change would be the students that access it. So that's the name. Otherwise, it's just a resource room. Okay. So what that means is that 60%, up to 60% of a school day can be spent in that classroom. The other 40% has to be part of the general education environment. And then CPI is Crisis Prevention Intervention. What it is it's a nonviolent de-escalation technique in working with students that 90% of it would be verbal de-escalation when you're working with a student, that there is ultimately very little hands-on that likes to be done, but should the needs arise, such as if a student is bolting towards the road, you don't want them to go that far, so of course you're going to put hands on a student to prevent them from running onto 3A. So that's it's the technique of how, once you have the student, how to escort them back to safety.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
In your report, you list other at 13. Those are 13 students.
13 students.
That we send elsewhere, right? What is OOD?
OOD is out of district.
Out of district, okay.
So there's a very small number of students that go out of, when we're looking at students total, there's a small number of students that go out of district. There's a small number of students that's at our private schools like St. Francis or Tabernacle, but there's also a very minimal amount of students that go to charter schools. So charter schools are public schools, and we're responsible for the special education.
Can we get the breakout of the 13 per each one of those categories?
Some of those categories are so small that it may divulge and be able to pick out exactly who the students
Well, specifically
are.
then, I'd like the out of district numbers.
The out-of-district numbers, I believe at this moment there are 3 that are in placement and others that are working through.
And when we talk about placement, we're talking about RSEC, Lighthouse, those types
Yes,
of
those,
facilities?
those therapeutic facilities, correct.
And there's 3.
There's 3 currently placed,
Thank you.
but there have been IEP decisions for others where it's working through.
Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, Sophia.
And Mary, you are up.
Good evening. I'm going to apologize first because I just realized in looking at my report that we had a PERC meeting in September and there were 2 things that should have been moved forward to the board when I did this report, and typically it's usually the next meeting and I didn't. It wasn't this time, so I apologize. The wellness curriculum and the elementary competencies have just been linked up there. And so my apologies for that. Just to give you some updates on how we've started the year, our professional learning committee, we've actually taken a little bit of a different direction with that. What we had in the past was a professional learning representative in each building, and then one for the paraprofessionals, and they would act as both the rep for the committee and our My Learning Plan liaison, which is the system that we use to track PD. It was a lot for one person, and what I was finding was that some aspects people would do really, really well. Like they would totally be on top of training and working with teachers on MLP, but then they couldn't come to the committee meetings or vice versa. So we took that. It's a grant-based stipended position, but I broke it into 2 so that we have one person that is just the PD rep. They're working with PD opportunities within their buildings, and then one person who's just focused on My Learning Plan. So far that seems to be working pretty well. We have people in the positions in each building, with the exception of we did not have somebody doing the professional learning at the high school, but yesterday I had somebody come up and volunteer, so we're working on getting that finalized. We've already sent out our district-wide needs assessment. Oh God, I lost track of the day. It's Wednesday. Tomorrow afternoon is our deadline so that we can get the data together to look at our meeting, which is next Tuesday. Grading and reporting. We had our first meeting. We set goals for the year. Right now, our biggest goal is to collect data around the split with formatives and summatives and see how that's going, see if that's working. At our next meeting, we are going to talk, now that the quarter will have ended or we've had progress reports, we're going to talk about what is that, like, how are we going to get that data and what is it going to look like, and how are we going to start reporting on it. The other thing that the committee felt pretty strongly about was they wanted to do some work around grading consistency with special education, that we sort of are all over the place, and it's a very individualized thing, but we just need to set some parameters as you know, within the 3 buildings and within the district to make sure that the practices that we're using are consistent. So, and that is, I will say, it's not the responsibility of grading and reporting, it's the responsibility of professional learning, but that's going to take some training. So that is one of the things I was really happy that came up and that we're going to get after that. The other thing that came up is just power school issues, parent communication. With the switch to the formatives and summatives, we are having some back end issues if we do not have grades in each category. There's nothing that we've found to be able to fix it at this point. We've been working with Power School, Andrea and I have, for almost a month now. I'm not sure where the glitch is coming in. It's just that if there isn't a formative and a summative in each competency, something's getting skewed, and it's by like a couple points here and there, so it's not making a huge swing, but it's just enough that it's noticeable. So at the high school and the middle school, we have really been talking, that's who it impacts the most. We've been talking about ensuring that there are grades in each one of those categories. And if there are not, which I know, especially with our unified arts, that are A, B only and we're at the quarter point, we have rolling grades until the semester end. So that will be remedied before the end of the semester. So teachers have just been asked to really communicate that out if they are.
And how will it be remedied?
As teachers enter grades.
Yeah,
into those categories.
there's
But is there?
there's a
But
requirement.
it sounds like there's a software issue as well. What are we doing about that?
It's not a software issue. It is the fact that we have asked the system by breaking it down as far as we have, the system just isn't, it needs both barrels to have something in it.
Got it.
But it'll remedy because at the end of the semester, there must be grades in each category. I mean, there should be
Grades
at
all
the end
along.
of,
Several.
right. But because of the switch to the AB schedule with the unified arts, I understand that is they've seen them 20 days. So at this point, to have a summative in each competency, if you're not integrating, if you're not assessing using multiple competencies in a summative, it may not have been enough time. So the heavy lift for me tonight is the Litchfield Curriculum Committee, which I'm trying really hard not to refer to as PERC. I love that we changed it because nobody knows what PERC means, myself included.
When did it get changed? Recently?
Beginning of this
The
year.
beginning, the committee voted at the beginning of the year,
After the 100th inquiry of what's PERC stand for.
Yeah.
and asking the 100th person and getting a different answer. So, being
Notice
the,
that in past agendas. Perk.
and I was getting to the point that I just made up something every time because I never had a straight answer on what it was. So we have a number of text proposals, course proposals. Some of those you may need because we had an abundance come in late. I did not get them to PERC and the final approvals through PERC until yesterday.
Curriculum committee.
Yes, thank you. Litchfield LCC, as Mike will remind me. So I don't know if the board would like to vote on them tonight or hold off and do it at the next meeting and give everybody a chance to. I've had them up there, but they really didn't get approved until yesterday from PERC, so from LCC. Gotta do it all the time. But there are 3 things on there that have already that were approved in September through the curriculum committee. One being the wellness curriculum, which we had talked, the course got approved in the spring or late spring, early summer. Shannon worked all summer with myself and towards the end of the summer with Harrison to develop that full curriculum. So that's there. That was approved at PERC in September, as well as the elementary competencies. I know the board asked to have the elementary staff review the competencies and they really wanted to put them in kid-friendlier language, more age-appropriate language. So you'll see there what they have submitted that has gone through PERC for approval as well. The one thing that I said to Dan is they do have to still align in terms of the general sense of the competencies, but and they're there, and I have them with the secondary competencies so you can see them sort of side by side. There are some that they've generalized, so that might be 2 competencies that they've generalized into one, and they felt very strongly about that. That was done with the input of from what I understand, the entire elementary school staff. So if that's what they want, I'm going to support that.
So I think with the elementary school competencies, didn't we see a copy of the new report card?
Yes.
From Mr. Mitchell at his recent, and these were in there.
Yes.
So we have seen these before. So
Yes.
I am
So
comfortable
we're-
approving, even though they weren't linked, I'm comfortable approving that because we've seen them before and we've looked at them. The wellness curriculum is 11 pages and I haven't looked at that one yet
That's fine.
because that just got added
Yeah, I
tonight.
literally
Yeah.
just added those, and that's
And that
again,
wait until the next meeting,
Yes.
or is that critical now?
No, I mean, she's working off of it, but it's a conglomeration of her 2 curriculums that have already been approved anyways.
Okay.
So, that's,
All right. Well, are there any questions on any particular, either text or course proposal? Is the group comfortable approving them as a whole, or do you want to go one by one? Are there concerns?
I've reviewed all these as the rep to the LCC, so I'm comfortable voting for them.
I will say, because I think, Tina, you would ask the question, the video game design and the cybersecurity, I actually unlinked what was listed as the UBD. They're
okay.
canned curriculum, so they're like Project Lead the Way, and that we actually have access to a full curriculum.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that was-
it was linked at the bottom, but most people in the committee missed it, so.
All right, then I'm gonna do it by each topic, I guess. I'll make a motion to approve the English text proposals. I'm not gonna be able to say it. What is the second word?
Elegy.
Thank you. Hillbilly Elegy and the Glass Castle.
I will second that.
Any questions on either of these? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 400. I find the Art of Songwriting Taylor's version to be fascinating, by the way. Will that be offered next year, or it's to be
That's the goal.
determined?
These are slated to, we're still working with the English department and the computer science department with setting a schedule for rotation, but the plan is to put them in the program of studies for next year.
Perfect.
I'll make a motion to approve Media, The Hero's Journey, Writing for the Real World, and The Art of Songwriting, for English course proposals.
I will second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, passes 400. I guess I'll just do the next group as a bunch. I'd like to make a motion to approve Critical Thinking Through Gaming, which is a social studies course proposal, Video Game Design and Cybersecurity, which are both computer science course proposals, and Integrated Algebra 2, which is a math course proposal.
I'll second.
Questions?
Are we gonna do staffing these?
So they're all built in to be, so the ones that would be harder to staff would be English and computer science, which is why I'm working with those departments and Val to, they'd be added to the rotation. What we've done over the last couple of years is set course rotations, so they're not offered every year. Adding to it, I met with the curriculum facilitator in English yesterday. They're looking to remove a couple courses from the choices that have not been very popular in the last few years, and then realign the rotation so that it's not impacting staffing.
So you won't be looking to add staff?
No, not at all.
All right, motion is second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain,
Aye.
401. And I'll make a motion to approve the elementary competencies that are outlined therein.
I'll second.
Are there questions on those? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the elementary competencies, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Aye.
401. And then for the wellness curriculum, we can review that next time, if that's okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. Thank you. Any questions for Mary, either about her report or any other curriculum issue? Hearing none, thank you very much.
All
We
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
Good night.
You as well.
All right, going back to the agenda, it'd be time for the student representative report, but they aren't here yet, so we'll just, hold on that, and when they get here, we'll have them talk. So for now, community comment on agenda items. Is there anyone here from the community that would like to comment on an agenda item? Don't race all at once. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and close community comment at this time. Moving on to correspondence.
Great. I collected the correspondence after our October 18th meeting. So I have October 19th, Ann Inamorati sent the credit card manifest. October 20th, Heidi Ames gave us an update on the superintendent search, signed the contract with NHSBA. Responses from Andrew Cutter, Tina Harrison, Matt Shoemaker, and Peter Plansky, with requests to further discuss school board member participation on the search committee. October 20th, Holly Falzone circulating the superintendent survey to be filled out before the search. October 22nd, the board received an email from Alejandro Urrutia and with an invitation to attend the meeting of the Hudson Litchfield Rotary Club. Response from Heidi Ames that she viewed it as a important and beneficial connection to make. Responses from Tina Harrison, Peter Plansky, and Andrew Cutter regarding availability for the Rotary Club meeting. October 23rd, Jan Sullivan circulated the draft public and non-public minutes from the October 18th school board meeting. October 23rd, Kayla Collins sent meeting invitations for budget meetings 1, 2, and 3. October 23rd, Holly Falzone sent an email that the superintendent search survey was available through 10/25. October 25th, Doug Totten emailed regarding replacing employee names with employee numbers for this year's budget presentation. Response from Andrew Cutter requesting document linking employee names to employee numbers. Response from Doug Totten that Holly Falzone was working on that. October 25th, Peter Plansky unable to attend the Rotary Club meeting. Response from myself indicating that I would attend the Rotary Club meeting. Email from Tina Harrison, RSVP to Alejandro Urrutia for Rotary Club meeting. October 26th, Holly Falzone circulating the employee name and number chart with responses from Andrew Cutter and Peter Plansky and thanks. October 26th, Doug Totten circulating budget documents, the requested budget, Excel formats, Fund 10 budget, and Excel format, and employee number and name chart. October 26th, Doug Totten circulating the budget documents to the budget committee. Hard copies to be distributed at the budget committee meeting last week or available for pickup at the SAU. October 27th, Ann Inamorati circulated the manifest for the 11-1 school board meeting, and that is all I had until today, although I know you sent out this afternoon.
Just an update,
An update
yeah.
on the superintendent
Which I
search.
can go over when we get to that. Okie dokie, and that is correspondence. Moving into general business, superintendent's report.
Thank you. So a couple of things to report tonight. So one thing I want to talk about is the PPA, which is the power purchase agreement at the middle school. So we continue to have ongoing dialogue with Kay, who is the company, she owns the company that will be installing the array. And what Kay has offered to us, and we're in the works of trying to get this all finalized, but essentially, even though the array now is scheduled to go up on the roof after Thanksgiving, so we're narrowing in on that. And we're waiting we got preliminary approval from Eversource, and then we need to get town permitting and approval, and then we'll be able to begin that work. So it is looking like after Thanksgiving. But the numbers are coming in consistent with the modeling that was done. So in other words, how much electricity are we actually using? How much will we then use over the course of the year. And everything is coming out exactly as it had been modeled, if not better than it had been modeled. So what Kay is proposing is that we pick a back date to initiate the PPA. And so essentially there won't be a risk to the taxpayers because the $95,000, I'm using rough numbers, but that's the budgeted amount for the electricity for the PPA, that number can go into effect, so there won't be any harm or foul relative to the consumption. So we're feeling very good about getting an addendum to the purchase, to the PPA, so that we can enact that. And it puts pressure on the company to get the array up there quickly because they're looking at a year-long model of how electricity is used. And so, if that goes into effect in September, this past September, it would really hold their feet to the fire in terms of getting everything up and going. So we'll come back to the board with details on that as we work that out. But I know, we've been asked questions about what's the impact of not having the array up there. And this offer is really, it kind of mitigates that because it allows us to put that into play. And then it will have to average out over the course of the year. There's some other little details. So my understanding is that we cannot select a preferred electric vendor at LMS. You have to go with the Eversource rate if you're looking for the rebates relative to net metering. So there's some other little things that are like, okay, what we can do in one school, we can't necessarily do at LMS now. So we're working out all those details. But Doug, did you have anything else to add on the PPA and those conversations?
No, and part of the PPA too is there's been prepaid for expenses, so those come off starting on the first payment to the PPA. So North Branch did about $25,000 worth of work for this company, so they'd be able to hook up to the main panel at LMS. And since we were working with North Branch, the money flowed through us with being reimbursed from the PPA. And then there's some other work that Kay had done, knowing it was going to be reimbursed once we started paying for the PPA. So
what's the credit? Like, what are we expecting this to be? What's the dollar amount that the taxpayers can realize as a result of this new addendum?
So I don't know that we can assign a dollar amount to that, but what we can say is that the $95,000 annual payment that we committed to when we had the project in front of the voters is the payment that we'll be making this year. So there won't be, now there is, if we exceed, there's always been the clause about if you exceed the amount, the consumption amount, that is something that is billable back to us. But again, the model is shaping up in a way that it doesn't look likely that that's going to happen. Kate feels fairly confident. The goal was net zero. So, and she feels fairly confident what they're going to be able to generate and sell back to Eversource versus the bit that we'll have to buy from Eversource on cloudy days, et cetera, that's going to come out to pretty close to zero. That's been the goal, and she feels confident looking at the numbers. So remember, the numbers are every single heat pump is now on. So how is it actually running? How much electricity are we actually using versus modeling? And everything is shaping up where as good as it was predicted to be. So I think we're landing in a good spot. So the number, Andrew, I think is the commitment we made will go into effect. So it will be the $95,000.
So the $95,000 being the annual payment for the solar?
That's the payment for electricity.
I thought it was 120 for some reason.
120.
it becomes 120 after a certain amount of time.
In year 7,
Yeah.
if we don't purchase the array, then it starts to tick up in terms of the amount. But the first 6 years are level funded at what's the exact amount, 95?
Well, it's 97,619,
Yeah.
but that's with the company paying 2,500 for the use of the roof for the solar.
Oh, that gets us back to,
That gets us to that 95-ish around. And then in year 7, it jumps up to a minimum of 114,000. Year 8, 117, 121, 124. So it keeps going up from there.
Thank you.
any other questions about the solar aspect of this? One other thing that, again, it's not a risk to the taxpayers. This is this is what the company is absorbing, right? So the solar array will go on, the solar array will be generating electricity, it'll be connected to the grid, once all of the permitting is done. The batteries are a separate permit. So the battery storage system, which is gonna be located in the, kind of the storage unit that's behind the school, that is not slated to arrive until the spring at this point. And that technology, we could anticipate there'll be more hurdles with the battery backup part than there will be with the solar array at this stage of it. But once the PPA goes in and they commit to that, it's on them to figure out how to buffer that and to have the batteries, because remember, the batteries are really storing up during the summer time, when the days are longer, et cetera. So, and we have clarified with, I met last week briefly, I had a chance encounter with both the fire department and the building inspector, and I said, hey, this is in the pipeline, it's coming your way, I just want to kind of prime the pump that you're going to be seeing this fairly soon. And we reminded them that it was 2 permits. There's the solar array, which is the more normal permit. Lots of people have solar arrays. The battery backup, it will be a second permit in the spring. And that's unusual, so they're going to need more time to study that and to understand it and to feel comfortable with it. So, but that's to come later. They're not. It's not one big project. It's 2 projects in terms of the way that plays out.
So when you say they, is that the the building inspector?
Yep. And the fire department in particular, Peter, because they're concerned about a battery storage system. What is this thing? What are the dangers of this? How does it operate? What are the chemicals that are involved? There's a lot of questions about that, all of which will be answered in due time. But you don't have to hold up the array for a battery system that isn't there yet. So that we're going to permit the battery system separately, and we'll answer all those questions at the time that that's done.
So the amendment to the PPA, the hope of it is to almost have a 2-phase start. The first phase would guarantee that we're not paying more than that $95,000 per year for electricity. It won't start the clock on the PPA though, because to start the clock on the PPA, everything has to be working properly. That would be the solar and the battery. So we're not going to sign off that everything's working properly until it is. So then once the battery comes in, that's a protection for Litchfield. Once the battery comes in and everything is working properly, that's when the PPA would kick in.
The clock for the 6 years.
So is this effectively buying us an extra year at 95,000 then?
Part of a year, yeah.
Part of a year.
Hopefully not a full year, yeah, so.
Why are there continued delays with getting this thing installed?
So it's been a series of things that have added to the delays. So first of all, we're dealing with supply chain issues. Then there was the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, that had rebates that were available to companies that were doing this work. I'm going to tell you a positive side to that in a second. But that delayed, you're talking a bill that's like this thick, and even the I think the IRS was coming out with guidelines relative to that were delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And so all of these things just resulted in the kickback and the pushback on this. And then the battery backup system. So when it was finally determined, we just need to separate these things off. We can't keep holding off on this part of the project pending this part of the project. So that was sort of a groundbreaking move that got things headed in the right direction. There is Eversource was, they were in the permitting stage for a while, so that was another piece, and we knew that. We had talked about the Eversource, has to do their interconnectivity study to make sure that our system's not going to damage their system, so there was that piece that needed to be done. And then there was, and this is technical, so I'm not sure I even fully understand it, but there's a bus. There was some sort of connectivity bus that is I think it's on the wall in the back room, and there were questions about that design and the way that needed to be properly implemented. So the engineers were doing work on this electrical bus, and that also slowed things down. So that brings us to where we are. And, when we got the after Thanksgiving, I'm like, it's almost November, that's right here. So snow's coming, so.
That's my concern. Right
Yep.
now, it's snow on the roof. Now they're not
supposed to
going to be
snow
able to
today.
install it because they can't get up there, right? Whatever it might be.
Nope, we gotta get it up there, so.
So can't we start can we start the permitting process for the battery pack now rather than waiting until after the array is installed? Is there a reason they can't get that permit going simultaneously?
There are, so I'm not sure I understand this either, Peter, but there is like this national standard, so the fire department will tell you it has to meet this code. And the code for this type of system is still being finalized. So even the code is not clear about a system like this, so we're waiting.
It's a new technology. It's not like your standard lithium-ion batteries. This is solid-state batteries. So it's a brand-new technology that we're implementing.
I mean, is anybody in fire represented in these meetings that you're having where you learn that?
I'm sorry, ask the.
Is anybody from the fire department involved in these meetings where those details are going?
Yes,
are covered?
yep. So the key person in the fire department who seems to be the keeper of the gate is Steve Doobie. And so Litchfield Fire, he's actually on Hudson Fire, I think, and then he's with Litchfield also part-time. And so Steve is the one who best understands it. Doug has also been involved. Doug Nichols been involved in the conversation also. Paul Kelly's been involved. So they all, they understand the bigger picture of it, but I think Steve is the one who is the detail guy and knows exactly what he'll be looking for when that permit crosses.
And where I'm going with this, right, is we just got through the town budgets, right, and the fire department presented. And as a part of the fire department and in public input, quite frankly, the chief came up and said, hey, we have more demand on our services because of electric vehicles. The correlation here is electric vehicles, right? You have hybrid and then you have full electric, as we all know, right? Hybrid, he's now saying that it could take a few hours, up to 4 hours, for them to fully put out a hybrid vehicle. For an electric vehicle, it's 7 hours. That's what he. So now I'm wondering if we have this whole battery backup system behind it, what equipment, what additional tax burdened resource constraints does that put on the department that we're not thinking about?
Right.
Right. I can't answer that, but man.
What Kay has answered is, so I'm going to give a twofold answer of what I've heard Kay say to that. First of all, you cannot think about an electric car because you're dealing with lithium-ion batteries. These are capacitors, totally different technology, solid-state technology. The likelihood of a fire in a lithium system compared to a capacitor is, you can't even compare the two. So there's that reassurance that the technology doesn't require it. The second thing that she has said is that the container will have its own fire suppression system. And so what does that mean? I'm assuming that it means there are the proper type of sprinklers. So it's probably not water,
Yeah, probably chemical. some
but
sort of chemical.
chemical, it's all installed in there. And if the sensors get a sense that there is something going on in there, it will fire before the fire department even arrives. So that's the reassurance. And she said, we don't even have to by code provide that. We're doing it because the technology is new enough that we're just going to make sure that we cover all our bases. But she and Dick both are like minuscule likelihood of a fire with the capacitors. And you cannot, this goes back to when we were talking about the project and people said, I saw the Tesla on fire on the highway, and that's not what this is. That's a totally different battery system. This isn't the laptop on the airplane that you see on the news. This is capacitors. So hopefully, to answer that question, it'll have zero impact on Litchfield Fire. Other than, there's a training component. They're going to need to understand what's in the box, and if there's a problem with the box, how to respond to that. But the likelihood that they would be responding is not going to be great based on what Kay has talked about.
Let's hope.
And just to confirm, so there was multiple reasons for the delays that you just went over. One of them was the availability or the newer availability of some rebates. Us pursuing those there would have been delays regardless, right? Because I guess the question would be like, did the cost of the delays outweigh the rebates that we would have gotten on that? But we would have still been delayed for those other.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you say you had good news on the IRA?
Well, so let me just talk a little bit about project rebates. So the good news aspect of this, so remember, Dick will be applying for the rebates that we are going to qualify for with Eversource relative to the energy project there. And I don't believe we've seen anything on the rebate side yet, so that is still to come. But in the IRA, there were rebates available to design people who did this work. So they're not available to the school, but our design team has been able to apply for rebates relative to the work they accomplished on the project. So who do I mean? I mean Dave Ely, I mean Design Day. And so that was money they didn't anticipate as a part of this. And so they have reached out to us to say, listen, this was money that we weren't counting on. So therefore, we're done billing Litchfield. We're now going to utilize the rebates that we have qualified for, that we didn't even know we qualified for at the time, to help finish everything up. So that's another win for the taxpayers. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that they are, they're willing to basically help us wrap the project up utilizing the rebate money that they're getting from the federal government. It's got to be federal. So that's good news. And I think, the taxpayers should know and appreciate that that's something that's going to help everybody out.
So does that bring the cost of the overall project down?
It will not bring the cost of the project down, but it won't, there will not be ongoing costs, right? So from those two vendors. So as Design Day comes in to do punch list work and to identify, it's a brand new system. Something's going to happen in January. It's not going to operate as design. That's not going to be a service call. That's going to be we've got this covered because we're wrapping up the project. So essentially, there won't be ongoing costs. We're not going to get more bills for that work.
Any other questions? October enrollment?
Yep, so you have the October enrollment numbers, kind of typical for our enrollment numbers. There's not anything too striking there. Point out a couple of things to the board. The best tab to look at this point is the second tab, which is the 23-24 monthly comparison. So you can see that on September 29th, we had 1,219 students. We have lost 2 students to move outs. And if you examine it grade by grade, you'll see up 1 here, down 1 there. But overall, it's a down 2 in the district. So just, we give this report at the end of each month. We pull it on the last Friday of the month that school is in session. And that's what you are looking at. Happy to take any questions or observations from it.
Anyone? Hearing none, thank you. Anything
Thank you.
else on superintendent report?
That's what I had for you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. And then we'll move on to business and operations. It is the first meeting of the month. So we'll move on to you, Mr. Totten.
All right, great. So I noticed in old business, there's a capital improvement plan as well as a transportation contract. So I'll kind of skip those on mine. I had those added into mine as well. But we can definitely go back and look at some of the data that we have for transportation as we talk about that contract. So first thing on there is the LMS renovation. So we are down to our last payment, which would be $50,000. So we have some punch list items, which Dr. Jetty talked about, things that they have to correct for us in order for us to feel like everything's moving forward the way we want it to be, everything's working the way we want it to be, and the number that we left off for that to ensure that was at $50,000. So this current payment, we paid part through the municipal lease and then part through the money that we had raised during the budget season last year. Then we left the $50,000 from the municipal lease to pay that last bit towards North Branch. So not sure when that's gonna come, because again, that gets triggered by us being comfortable with the project. So that's where we're.
Will that be paid from that lease? Sorry, or will that
Yep.
be paid? So that's when we'll sign off on the lease and the paperwork that we're done?
Yes, yep, so when we have our last payment, we also have to sign, to the lease company that we're comfortable with all the work, we're comfortable, all the equipment has arrived and everything is working properly. So it'll be a couple different sign-offs. One for the lease company, and then one for us towards North Branch.
Good, thank you.
So further down, we have just the order of the budget. So just to remind people who are watching that we start going over fiscal year '25, which starts in July, so really next school year. We start having our budget presentations to both the school board and the budget committee next Tuesday, right? Tomorrow, sorry. I will be here tomorrow, so I'll be at the fire station
Please
tomorrow.
and thanks.
So, starting tomorrow and then a week from tomorrow as well. So the first day we're kicking it off with the schools. Schools are all about kids. We have our three main schools where we have our hundreds of kids that show up every day. So that's the order that we would like to go in. So we have GMS, LMS, CHS, as well as salaries and benefits. Most of our costs are people. We hire great people and they get paid, by salaries and their benefits. And then we have a small budget which goes to the HR budget. So that's day one. And then we follow up on day two with the remaining directors and what they're in charge of for the budget.
Just to clarify, that's November 7th, day 2. It says the 9th, but, yep, the 7th.
7th.
Don't want anyone to miss the 7th.
And again, meetings are at the fire department in the community room,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
So energy, so we signed the contract for multiple years for CHS and GMS. We went down by 1 year because if GMS is built and it's built with either solar or solar and storage, there would be a fluctuation in how much kilowatt hours we would be using. Or if it's even built with high efficiency, it would be a little bit different. So unlike residential, if there's a big fluctuation when you sign up as a corporation or school, there can be a penalty for that, which we would not want to pay that penalty. So we shortened it to 2 years, which brought up the cost a tiny bit. I think we were at like 11.37 or 11.42 and brought up to 11.56 per kilowatt hours. And again, that's for CHS and GMS. So looking into a little bit more for LMS, the only way for us to sell back to Eversource is not to be in a third-party contract. So we won't be moving forward with anything with that for LMS. But again, we lock our price for our kilowatt hours at LMS for that 95,000. Propane, we have been paying $225 for the last 2 years. This year and then last year, and then fiscal year '22, we were at $185. We can lock in for fiscal year '25 for $1.95. They are holding that through today, and then I can answer them tomorrow, and if not, then the price would adjust depending on where they're at that point. So this would realize savings for the budget, because right now we're budgeting in with that 225, or if we came down to 195, you can see the savings right there that we would have. With the world where it is, with different conflicts going on, locking in that propane at $1.95, I feel decent about. I mean, we don't have to go back too far where it was cheaper than that, but we're also in a different spot right now with just conflicts.
Lock it in, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
So, are people comfortable locking that in?
yes.
Okay. So I did hear back about oil. I heard back today, and what did I do with that? So we could lock in, again, oil would just be for GMS, and that would be for $3.59 for pretty much next fiscal year. So we're currently paying $3.79. Before that, it was nice. We were at $2.34. So it would be $3.59. A little less
Do we
eager to lock
anticipate
that
it?
one
That one's
in,
not
but
as exciting, Doug.
Yeah.
it's not as exciting. I agree. I am personally less eager to lock that one in, but I don't know how the board feels.
on the one hand, it's nice to have a planned expense. It's nice to be able to budget for something and be able to have that. On the other
It's
hand,
20 cents less a gallon than what we have now.
correct.
Right.
So that part's nice too. But that is a big difference between where it was a couple of years ago, and I don't know what the world's doing, and
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I guess my
definitely not
concern
my,
is,
yeah.
I guess my concern is like with what's happening in the Middle East right now, you know,
Yeah.
that could,
Impact
At
either
any
way.
point, it could change on a dime.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, oil's right around $4 now, a little bit less, a little bit more.
I'd say lock it in as
Yeah, I
well.
think we lock it in.
Okay, okay.
I love it, but it's, again, the stability of it, I think, is nice.
I mean, I feel like if we were to say, don't lock it in, and it gets a lot worse, then we made the wrong choice. If we say lock it in and it gets better, well, we could have saved some money, but I'd rather not have it be.
But in any event, we're still saving money over
Money
current.
either way.
Right,
You don't want it to be 429 like it was.
right.
That's what I'm worried about.
Someday we won't.
So as we go into the budget, then I'd be asking the board to make a couple motions to decrease those lines, and we'd have that amount for you to decrease it by, which will be,
Yeah, you usually have those ready for us, so.
Yep.
Great.
all right.
So where do we buy our oil now?
We buy it from Burke.
NSK Burke?
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Totten?
Just
When
in
are we
my
talking
notes,
about first student in the transportation? I say that in your report here too. Is that
It's
correct?
old business.
That's old business, okay.
and we didn't take motions on those, but just in the minutes, I would ask the Jan to record that consensus was to lock at 195
Correct.
for propane and oil at 359.
Let the record show.
Just to be
Yes.
clear, so it's there.
I'll be glad to make a motion if that's more
It's,
decisive.
it's the board's call.
I'll make a motion to lock in propane at $1.59 a gallon for fiscal, what,
95.
$1.95. I like
We
it.
like your number better, but
I'll make a motion to lock in $1.95 for propane for fiscal year 25, and for oil, it is
$3.59.
$3.59.
$3.59.
Also
I
for
thought you said
fiscal year
3.70.
25.
I'll second that.
All right, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500.
thank you.
All right, anything else for Doug? Hearing nothing, we will move on to the minutes, public minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 18th minutes, public minutes.
I'll go ahead and second. Are there any questions, revisions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the October 18th, 2023 public minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained,
Aye.
401. And now we head back to old business to handle some other issues, and we're gonna do hopefully the approval of the capital improvement plan. We
So-
talked about this at the last meeting.
Just,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but apparently the front door is locked, so I'm gonna go let our student reps in.
Oh.
And I'm not sure, should I wedge it? I mean, if we're expecting maybe, it is a public meeting, so I've never seen it locked, but I'll wedge it.
Yeah, it was locked. when
Was
I-
it locked when you
Yeah.
came in?
Corey was nice enough to let me in.
Huh.
You heard me bang on the door.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was
I
getting
am
ready to.
oblivious.
I was
If
gonna
you had
text-
texted me, I would have
I-
gotten a ding on my watch, but.
I was typing the text when you came to me.
Oh, one question while we wait for you, the superintendent to come back. Doug, on the transfers, I noticed a Gator transfer for $600. I know it's well under the 5,000 threshold, but does that mean that we're now moving forward with the purchase of a Gator?
We are moving, yeah, well, we believe they were sending 10 gators to a local company, and we believe we're getting one of those 10 for about 9,100. So I think we had budgeted 8,500.
So that's the
and
600 to cover the difference?
That's the 600 to cover the difference.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Sorry.
Are you guys
No,
frozen?
it's locked. It was frozen.
It's fine.
One of you
Alright.
was smart and Mark.
All right, we had slid back to old business, but with the superintendent not here, why don't we go ahead and, you guys, I throw you right on to, let's go. Ready to do any type of report?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jetty and Kayla.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it should be on the agenda, I think, because we shared it with Kayla. So.
We don't have access,
have access to
unfortunately.
Oh, really? Oh, wait.
Can we ask you for access?
Yeah, yeah. He can.
Right.
I think he can share it.
I requested it, yeah.
Yes, did I?
Maybe Mike has access and he can project it for us to the student report.
I can. There's not a scarecrow in the door.
Oh, no.
Well, something propping the door. I think.
We see the remote.
I don't know if we need remote.
I got it.
Want that one. Then they come running out.
Oh, sweet.
Right, you're good to go.
All right. Oh, sorry. So yeah, just what's happening at Campbell High School. Yeah.
All right. So recently, we did the awareness campaign for like Red Ribbon Week, like against alcohol, tobacco, and like other drugs. And we did like themes throughout the week. And then one of the themes was Red Day, which was Wednesday, and the whole school went outside to take a picture in the shape of a ribbon for Red Ribbon Week. And then we did the senior trick or treat, which our advisories got to create like a bucket, like in fashion and any design, and then there's candy in it, and then seniors got to go around and trick or treat through all the advisories. And the next slide is pictures from the senior trick
Got
or
a few
treat.
pictures. One on the right. That's one of like the baskets. Like the roof opened up and there was candy inside, and
Excellent.
people dressed up.
Is that Mr. Mahoney?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well done.
That's cool.
That's fun.
So the next one, sports. So boys soccer, we won in the first round, then we won in the quarterfinals, then last night we won in PKs against Hopkinton, so now we're on to the finals, which I'm really excited about, against Guilford.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
And then girls soccer, they won the first round against Prospect Mountain, but then unfortunately they lost in PKs against Guilford in the quarterfinals. Then football, they're the 1 seed, and they're heading to the semis this Saturday. Then unfortunately volleyball lost last night in the semis.
And then lastly, just what's coming up. The only big event we really have coming up is Make a Difference Week. So all the schools participate in it. We bring canned goods and non-perishable items, and then we basically just take it all and we bring it to the Litchfield food pantry to help all the families in need. And that's coming up the 13th to the 21st, I think, is the date.
Great.
Excellent. Great cause.
Is there is competition amongst the
3 schools?
advisories or the
So we're
schools
gonna,
or?
like change it around because usually I think it's advisories, but we want to do like grades and like get different ways because we don't want to be like
Nice.
the same every year. So we're trying
Yeah.
to figure out different ways. So
Awesome.
it should be fun.
Little competition always
Yeah.
drives up the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's it.
Great.
Any questions for our student reps? Hearing none, thanks guys. I put a couple of paper agendas for you to be able to follow along. We are at old business, so again, going back to the capital improvement plan. My understanding from the capital improvement plan was, we talked about it last week, there was a couple of suggested or feedback that was given that we need to either approve or vote on, is that correct?
Yeah, we were down to one thing which they were asking for the advice of the school board as far as lumping several projects together and then doing a smaller type of bond on those projects over, say, 5 years. And so the projects that were identified at the capital improvement meeting are the ones in green there. So that would be the LMS parking lot, access road, and I should have it on I can't see all the way.
Underground piping?
The LMS fields.
LMS Field, CHS Energy, floor.
And then the floor, the
Gym
gym floor at the middle school.
So
All
we
of
had-
these gonna be in one? I thought there was gonna be 3 things that were all related to LMS.
They were, and that was originally what the was in the capital improvement plan. At the last CIP meeting, the thought from that committee was if we can lump them together into one project to more evenly distribute the cost, because in the plan itself, there were a lot of there were definitely some high peaks and valleys year to year, and to level out the tax impact to the taxpayers, it would be better perceived to have it as one project and a consistent payment for, it looks like a 5-year period. Is that what was put together?
5 years would be about 400,000 a year.
So we had discussed it at the Facilities Improvement Committee, and we agreed with that assessment, that it would be easier to budget for if we went ahead and did that, so. We made recommendation to the board last week, or 2 weeks ago, at our last meeting.
I think
No?
we sent it to facilities,
okay.
and you guys have met since then, and
Yep.
now,
And
now you're coming back with the
we have that
recommendation
yeah,
to
to
go ahead.
and do that.
How do we feel about a second bond if this GMS bond were to pass? Would that be something off-putting to
Yeah,
taxpayers?
But the other option would be to have a warrant article for each of these and contributing to the peaks and valleys of the overall CIP plan. So in order to keep it consistent and not have those ebbs and flows.
And again, I just remind the board, it's a plan, right?
Right.
Whatever the
Right.
board decides to put to warrant is separate.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is just kind of even it out on the plan.
And it was a pretty lively discussion about all those pieces, right? So, because historically, people like to have one bond at a time. But this is sort of a mini bond, 5 years. And you can see in the first year to do the parking lot and the fields, you're at almost $1 million when you add it up. But the payment on that would be the $395. So that would feel better if you were able to spread that out through that mini bond. So we thought the taxpayers, given the choice, would understand the wisdom of a short-term bond to accomplish that. So it was, I think it was unanimous at the
Yeah.
facility committee to recommend to the board that you revise the plan as suggested by CIP.
And Andrew, that makes sense with the town requests as well, right? So on our plan, we don't see what the town has in their plan.
But the overall,
The overall,
Yeah.
this aligns to what the thought was, yes.
Okay.
and
But
again,
this wouldn't go to warrant till next, not this March, but following March.
correct.
So we're not competing
Maybe.
with the school.
Maybe. This isn't locking anybody
Right.
into any warrant
This is
articles.
just
This
the
is just
plan.
a plan to assess for impact and growth and looking forward to that consistent, trying to get a consistent model for the next 6 years without massive spikes and drops in the tax rate.
I think we can overcome any, hopefully, as you said, overcome any second bond issues with communication with taxpayers and if that's the route we elect to go. So what needs to be the motion then to, I want to make sure we get it correct.
So the motion, I think, is to combine the
Those
maybe it's
four.
to accept the recommendation of the CIP committee to combine those projects together to a small bond and to even out the cost over the 5 years of that.
And the 5 years would be 25, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Yep. It'll start in
We-
25 and take us right through the rest of that grid.
Do we need a full dollar amount or is the,
It's there on there, right? 1.7 million, 1.8 million?
I don't know if I'd put, I mean, that's,
So you
I
have
would use roughly around 1.8 million.
And you have about 395,000. So I'll make a motion to consolidate LMS pavement parking lot, access road, LMS fields, CHS energy efficiency, as well as LMS gymnasium floor replacement into an annual payment of $395,000 beginning in the year of 2025 through the year of 2029.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments that we haven't covered? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? It passes 500. Excellent.
And so we'll need to get that over to NRPC for our meeting next Monday because they're gonna have to model that.
Yeah, so we'll make adjustments and I'll send it over to Jay
Thank you.
and CIP.
Excellent. And then moving into the transportation contract, we had a presentation last week. First student came in and met with us. We have the contract here. We've had a little bit more time to look at it, as well as what the extension looks like.
And then what was added today, which is in the BA report, is the numbers of students on the buses.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So we got that today, so that's why it was entered today, so I know it doesn't give a lot of time.
Did not see that.
But try to,
Saw it, went away.
I'm gonna put it up on the screen for everybody, because it,
color code it. So each of the buses, they are 77 passenger buses with 25 three-person seats and that one smaller seat, the two-person seat. So if you went two per seat, it's 51 kids could be on the bus at two per seat. So you can see that, and this is a 3 days that they did the counts on. We were over 51 on one instance on bus number 1 PM on one of those days. So, so the going thought would be the same as what we talked about last year, would be taking one of the routes, splitting it up, but not splitting it up to the longest current route. So by the time you split it up, no one would still be on the bus longer than our current students are on the bus at the longest period this year as well.
So it looks like from this chart that that would be feasible. Are you recommending that, or?
To go from, am I understanding 9 to 8?
I'm saying it's a strong option.
It's a strong option. I'm questioning if we can go from 9 to 7. And I'd like to take a look at that, especially in the light of the 45% 5-year contract increase of first student. I think we should do our diligence and just see what that potential impact is. Not saying that's the decision, but I think it's worth investigating.
so we'll have to get together with them, because they've only looked at the 9 to 8 question. 9 to 7's a new one. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they had estimated that, because the other piece is they're trying to make sure they can complete those runs in time.
Right.
And to get to, especially GMS in the afternoon, that's
Yep.
that's the tough one, right? And so when you take one more out, I'm like, uh-oh, we just added more mileage for each route and potentially more stops and a longer route. So, we'll have to see what that trade-off is, because it's not just about can we put more kids on the bus, the seats are there. But can we also complete that run in the time? So we'll have to have that run
I think it's worth a question.
by them and asking, yeah, absolutely.
When do they need a response on this contract?
Well, we're not committed, so I'm hopeful that this doesn't lock us in, or any action on the contract, we can still modify the number of buses.
That's correct.
Right, so we're not locked into 9 buses, even with the approval of the contract tonight.
Again, my only concern with this contract is the fact that I don't feel like we got a clear answer on how we would handle if we got the grant for electric buses mid-term of the contract. The answer is basically, we hope that it's going to be, like a net zero change to the cost, but just in terms of any sort of like implementation aspects of the contract, there's not anything built into this contract that allows any of the terms to be renegotiated based on like unique aspects of an electric bus.
So they're working on that, the language for that. We meet with them again tomorrow. I was on the phone with them on Monday to kind of the reminders of what we were looking to get, and that was one of them.
Right.
And then bus ridership was another one. So we meet again tomorrow. I think it's at like 1:30.
So we would be seeing that before we made any decisions on.
Yeah, when I was on the phone, I said, remember, this is important that the board sees that there has to be some type of trigger with an electric bus to renegotiate at that point.
Cool.
So we'll table it for next meeting?
I think that sounds right. The only question I had, a taxpayer had raised the issue of, are we required to provide transportation to high school students?
By law, we are not.
And I guess my question is, with that 9 to 7, if high school students, do we know what the breakdown of ridership is on the LMS CHS route for high schoolers versus middle schoolers?
I believe it's far more middle schoolers.
I agree, I
Definitely
just don't.
far more. We don't have the breakdown. I think like one bus kind of did the breakdown, but they weren't asked to do
Okay.
that. So,
All right,
I don't know that, we'd still have to do those runs. even if we didn't bus the high school kids.
There may not be as many
Have less
stops,
people in
though.
There may not be as many stops, and there wouldn't
I
have to
thought
go
somebody said there was
over
like 12 high
to
school kids who rode the
CHS.
bus.
There's not a lot. Yeah, I don't know.
12
I don't-
total?
Yeah, I
I
just,
think it's more
I
than
bet you it's
12.
more than 12, but it's definitely.
I've been out there and watched, and, I mean, I think it fluctuates by route, but, and it fluctuates by season.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's going on after school, and who's playing which sports. There's a lot of
Factors there.
varieties that go into, does my friend have a car today? I mean, all of
is he
those
grounded?
things,
Can you not give me a ride?
all of those things factor into what happens on a daily basis.
I'm not saying I think it's the ideal solution, but if we're looking to potentially go from 9 to 7 and those numbers are really tight, and what would make 7 more feasible is not providing transportation to the high school students, I'd be interested in hearing
It's a good question.
if that would work.
Yeah.
And what that would look
So,
like.
when I first started on the board, I believe we charged a fee to ride the bus. And so it was either you pay the fee to park or you pay the fee to ride the bus. And, I remember very, very, clearly that, I didn't believe that we should be charging students to get to school. We have an obligation to we don't have to by law, but it's the right thing to do, to ensure that kids can.
Was that
get
just
to
at the high school level? Or was
Just,
it?
because they were charging a bus pass at the high school because we weren't legally required by the state law to provide transportation. We have a town where not all kids drive, not all kids can get a ride from home, and I think the right thing to do is to bus our kids to school. That's just my stance on it. So, just put it
And
out.
I don't necessarily disagree
I
with
know.
you, but as we're looking at such a price hike on the contract, and as we are trying to get our costs down, I think having that information in terms of what the high school ridership is, how it's divided over the routes, whether it impacts additional stops or not, would be helpful. And I don't know that we need really specific answers to all of those questions, but a general ridership of the high school breakdown would be helpful.
Are there any routes for high schools that are close enough that they could, even if it puts a little more of a burden on high school students, that they could get to a different route?
We could get to it.
That's
You
what
can
I'm
walk to a stop.
Walk
Everybody walk to Albuquerque.
But I don't know, do you guys,
That's,
do you guys drive, do you
we
take
do.
the bus, what do you,
Yeah, but I didn't know how close the
yeah, most kids.
routes
I
are, like,
feel like
if we
most
could
kids drive when
consolidate
they
even
can.
one high
Yeah.
school route into
Mine drives.
another maybe.
Yeah, I know, but there are kids who can't, so I wanna make sure that we're not.
Do we have
driving
anything
them
where if you live within a
to
certain
school.
distance, you have to walk, kind of
It's a
thing?
mile.
It's a mile.
So by law, it's 2 miles. I think Litchfield has adopted 1 mile, and then it's even closer for like GMS, I think. So, which
it's
obviously
because of the
we'd all
location.
want it to be
Right.
closer for GMS. I don't think anyone walks.
But I don't disagree with Tina, though. I mean, I think
I
that
don't
you have,
disagree
if you have kids that don't have a way to get to school, right? Like, if there's a hardship situation, to then be like, yeah, now you have to figure out a way to get to school on top of it, that is.
It impacts students in their learning.
so two things, so remember, before we combined the middle school and the high school routes, there was a separate high school
Yeah.
route, right? So we cut that out. And my heart always goes to the equity question, and, there are plenty of kids who have a very nice car, and they can get themselves back and forth. But there are kids who don't, and I think we just always have to be mindful that, the most disadvantaged student is the one we got to think about when we're setting policy and decisions. And so then you charge the fee, who's least likely to be able to pay the fee. We've seen an uptick in our free and reduced lunch population in town. So, and again, you can put mechanisms in to deal with all of that, but the current mechanism is, it's a combined route, it's going around, and all students grades 5 through 12 have access to that bus. And so, it's a policy change to do something else, which again, the board has every right to do, but you just want to think your way through
Absolutely.
all the pieces of that.
This
So,
was just for asking the question because the taxpayer asked it, but
Yep.
then also, let's gather the information so we can make an informed decision.
Decision, that's
Mhm.
it. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it either way, but I
I don't
would like to
necessarily
have
love the idea from going 9 to 7, but if we don't ask the question, we won't know, right? And we have to understand, can we do it in the same timeframes? Do we actually need to look at changing our times to accommodate,
Yep.
to save money? I think all those things need to be on the table with a nearly 50% increase.
And I also think this is the perfect issue for people at home who have an opinion on it to email in and send in some correspondence so that we can report back on it and get the feel and the pulse of the community. So,
We also, so we're feeling the pinch of that 20% increase, right? But in checking across the region, our buses, our daily bus rate continues to be competitive. And I can get you the numbers so you can see exactly what other districts are paying, whether they're with first student transportation,
I believe it.
whichever route.
And I'm not
I don't
disputing that at
I think the
all.
rate is fair compared to other districts.
So what other levers can we pull,
Yep.
right, to reduce the cost?
Correct.
And that's what we're looking at.
But I want you to also just have that, it's not like there's that Litchfield's being asked to do something that others aren't. This is just the
I don't think
nature
so.
of,
Yep.
I don't know.
having a trained certified driver on the bus. It's mainly a labor question, so.
Well, and as they pointed out, we've been lucky enough not to have to cancel sporting events and transportation to field trips and whatnot because of unavailability, so I don't have any issue at all with first student and what the rate is that they're requesting. It's been 5 years. My issue more is what is our need compared to what it was 5 years ago?
All right, so as we step our way into this, are we waiting to get language as far as electric buses before the school board's going to make a decision? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And-
I don't, in my opinion, I think it's a waste of time at this point, right? I mean, I see the value in electric buses. I don't want to be the first one to have it. I think it needs to be tested. I think it needs to be proven. I think we need to show the success model. I think we need to get our solar up and running. We need to see the value of that. I don't want to necessarily.
Just to clarify though, it's just they're applying for grants. We don't know if we would get them. We don't know when we would get them, right? So like we could be somewhere in a process that would be after someone else.
But I
already
feel like we're
tested.
wasting board time even talking about it at this stage. I
Well,
really
but
do.
all we're talking about is them adding a provision into the contract that allows, if we were awarded a grant, for us to modify the language of the contract if we found it
So
suitable.
why
at
don't
the
we just
time.
do an addendum when and if that's necessary?
Because
It
the
can
other
be-
party has to agree to the addendum.
Right, and if they say, no, we don't want to reduce your costs, even though we're going to have 2, 3, 4 electric buses on tap, or.
We're talking about 2 sentences being added to this to just basically say that we can open up and we don't have to have them agree to revise it if there was something related to that. I asked the question at the last meeting because I don't want them to go down the road of this unless there was some crazy savings that they can guarantee us. And what they said was, we're applying for grants at no cost to you, has no impact, and if you get them, you don't even have to take them. So in my mind, they're doing the work at no cost to us. We just want to make sure the language is in the contract.
So I'm thinking, do you want the third sentence to be, though, that we'd only accept renegotiation if the price was staying the same or going down? Like, we don't want to open up the contract if the price is going up for
It
electric
shouldn't be an
buses.
increase in price. My feeling is if we get electric buses, then we're not paying the fuel. So we should be getting money back at that point.
Especially if
what
it's
it
gonna
paid
be
in
on
fuel.
our grid
Right.
versus their grid.
So
Exactly.
do we want that third sentence? Do we want me to leave it out, or?
I don't know that we need it because at the end of the day, we're not forced to accept it if they give it to us. So if there's some other unforeseeable benefit that we are not thinking of right now, I don't want to pigeonhole us into that being, I don't think it needs to be a term of the contract. We're not forced into it. They could always come back to us and say, yeah, it's going to cost you more money. Of course, we're going to probably say, no, thanks, we're all set, but.
And then as we kind of, to me, it might make sense to step our way to 7 buses. As we look at this, I don't know when the board might feel comfortable to say, yeah, 8 could definitely work. And that's the direction we might want to go into, but let's wait some time before we kind of decide on the 7 too, could be an option.
Well, like you said, the number of buses, we don't have to decide before we approve the rate in the contract, correct?
No, we don't, but it does factor into budgeting season. For every 1 bus we go down, it's about $80,000.
Sure.
As we look at the big picture of that.
I don't think we can say until we know what the numbers, like the numbers that we're asking for. I don't know if we can say whether it makes sense to step down or whether it makes sense to go directly to that for that savings right out of the
And I
gate.
don't love that page 2 of this or this letter says 9 buses specifically. It says 9 regular buses clearly right on it.
Yeah, if it said up to, that might be nice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so it says up to 9.
It does.
does
No, it says
not.
9 regular
Page
buses.
2, where it goes through the schedule of fees, it says 9 regular buses, right? I just don't want that.
So you go to 7, they
So yeah, you
may
get 7
bump
and
the
now
daily
it's,
rate.
right.
Yeah.
Is the daily rate gonna change if we have less buses?
Yeah.
We'll clarify that with them.
Last year, they said no.
Agreed, but it's a new contract
agreement,
here.
So
It's a new contract with the same language
Yeah.
of the contract.
Yep.
we'll clarify that.
Again, I don't want to delay it. It sounds like we want this in place in part to line up the contract for next year, but in part for budgeting purposes. But I think there's just a little bit more information we'd like to gather, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right, I do think at our next meeting, though, which is what, the 15th?
Mhm.
We'll need to make a
We'll
decision.
be
on
ready
this
to
one.
go. Yeah, I agree. So I guess to make it super easy on Doug and Mike as they go back, are there any other pieces of information people feel are critical to making this decision that we want them to ask or investigate? Because it makes sense to do it all at one time.
So I guess I would just ask that if that language is going to be added to the contract, that would be able to be emailed to us so that we could at least review it prior to, since we're going to be voting on it. Because I just don't want to end up getting to the next meeting and then saying, oh yeah, well, actually change it
Yeah.
one more time. I think we want to be ready to sign on the.
Yeah.
We need to, because it's got to go to the budget committee the next
Right.
day.
So if we could see that in advance, that'd be helpful.
Yep, okay. So I have 3 things. I have language about electric, contract about making sure we can go down from 9 buses, and it's a straight, kind of off of the total contract at that point, and then high school ridership for the buses.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna table the transportation contract and we will put that on the agenda, old business, for next week. Seeing nothing else under old business, we'll move into new business. We have some policy updates that are being presented for a first read.
I'll make a motion to approve policy KA, IJO, policy IHBI, and IMAH for a first read.
I will second. Any questions?
I don't have access to those though, so.
You don't.
No. So
Sorry.
I'll be
You're gonna
abstaining. That's okay.
We
do
can
have
figure out
that.
what's going on with the sharing on that.
All right, any quesestions? Whoa, someone's highlighting it. Okay. Not
Oh,
me.
sorry.
No, okay, I was like, what? I didn't do it. It wasn't
That's
me.
usually my move.
You insert like a random picture in there every once in a while or a blank spot. All right, hearing no further conversation, all those in favor of approving the 3 policies listed for a first read, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
401. Okay, moving into the superintendent search process. I think we can probably put this as we may want to put this under old business going forward after this, but I sent an email out to the board earlier today just to give an update on where we are with the preliminary search committee, the ad, and the dates. I'm just trying to find my email because it summarizes it well, and then I can just read off of that. We did send out a survey members to school board members, admin, and SAU from Holly. There were 17 responses, which were to help us make sure that the ad that we had was aligned with the search criteria. It very much was. It was kind of scary how similar it was to the search criteria from 6 years ago. So the ad was drafted. It is with Michelle, our rep from the Bryan Group, who is going to be posting it, I believe, at some point today. I haven't seen confirmation that it's up, but the goal was to have it up by November 1st, with responses due by Friday, December 3rd. Holly sent emails out to district teachers, staff, and families regarding serving on the search committee. Amongst the parameters that we had talked about at the last meeting, with who would be on it. And so we did get a great response from a lot of parents. I think there was over 15 parents that responded with interest, which is fantastic. To keep it fair, we put literally all names in a hat, well, put them in a crinkled ball that was on my counter, and then we picked from the crinkled ball of paper. But the names were picked to make sure we had GMS representation from parents as well as LMS and CHS representation.
Who's we, by the way?
Holly and I
Oh.
and Michelle, we were all on the same call just to try and make sure that we did it as fair as possible. We have 2 CHS students who are going to be on it. I'm not sure if it's any of you guys or if Mr. McDonough's talked to you, but at least one.
Talk to me and Bridget about it.
Okay, perfect. So we have 2 CHS students that will be on it. So I think we're in good shape. I think that once the ad's out, we'll have a little bit of downtime. Michelle is the one who's put forth the schedule for meeting, for the details with the dates that were provided. The November 7th, 14th, and 28th meetings are to do some training and do some regarding how to review applications and what you're looking for. And then I believe it's GSI, I don't even know what that stands for, but GSI, like the storytelling training on that. So those will be those 3 prep meetings. December 5th is going to be the initial review, and then 13th and 14th are full day interviews. We had thought, or I had thought that those would be via Zoom, but it's not. They recommend those be in person so that people have to see the distance, see where they're going, what the school looks like, know where they'd be traveling to, et cetera, so that they could weed themselves out if it's not a place that they want to be. But that the next more lengthier interviews would be via Zoom, apparently. And that, again, that's following their recommendations and their process. So we have a start. The question is, in terms of board representation, I think there were 4 out of the 5 of us that were interested in serving on this committee. I'm certainly happy we can talk about who wants to do it and why and what makes the most sense. I think it's important to note that as the board, we do have the final say in this, and the board member on the committee can present as often as the board wishes. They're serving at the will of the board, and so to the extent that the full board wants access to applications, or what that looks like, we can talk about what the parameters are for that. I think that's the good part. We get to decide that. So I provide all of that as background to say that we have some of the ingredients. We're just getting started, but there's a lot of work to do.
So my question is, can we put 2 board members?
We can do what we want.
So, yeah, I think first off, thank you for all you've done on this. I know there was a few emails that went back and forth, and I think there may have just been a misunderstanding at the last meeting. I know that a few of us had interest in this, given, how important this is to just
Absolutely.
the district as a whole. And so, yeah, I think that I don't want to put too many cooks in the kitchen, because we all have a lot to do anyways. But I know that there was definitely enough interest, and I think that having two perspectives involved at every level is probably not a bad idea from the board. So I guess I would propose that, and then,
I think the reality for me, although I'm very interested in supporting this and being a part of it, the reality is looking at this schedule with policy committee and budget committee, I can't, these meetings start at 3:30, and with budget and budget season, these meetings are gonna go till 9, 10 o'clock at night, on top of a full workday. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of took myself out of it. I'm swamped at least till December 3rd.
With the play
With
stuff.
the play stuff. I'm going from work to many meetings after school or in the evenings for school board, so I don't have the time to be able to.
Kind of in the same place, just with work, never mind the other stuff, so.
Right.
I'll do it with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to continue
I do
to
like
do
the
it.
idea of having 2 people on the board. I think it would be good to
Yeah,
have the 2.
I personally would have preferred these meetings to be more in the evening myself, but with 3 principals, 3 teachers, 3 staff folks, it was decided, Michelle said that it was typically done, rather than send people home and have them come back for a 6 o'clock start.
Right.
It's better for the majority of the committee to go
Yeah.
right from their workday into the meeting, and so,
So, Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve both yourself and Mr. Shoemaker as a part of the Superintendent Search Committee.
great,
Second?
great.
Thank you for your willingness.
We're gonna have
My
some
wife's
fun.
not watching tonight, so.
You're gonna be in trouble
Lot
once
of
she
courage
figures it
there.
out. All right, we
She's
have
got
a
a text right
motion.
about now.
That being said, I guess before we do the final vote, I
Yeah.
would like to see all the candidates and if
Yeah.
resumes or whatever shared. I think that should be shared with the board just for awareness.
Yep.
And if there's an opportunity for board members to at least provide feedback to you two, based maybe
Absolutely.
questions we're seeing from whatever's provided to us.
Yeah, so on the 7th, 14th, and 28th, we will be coming up with, she said, 8 to 10 questions that the team asks. And so I definitely would be looking for input for the board as to what we think those questions should be. I mean, again, the committee is going to come up with them too, but I think that would be great to kind of narrow in on what our focus is and what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You voting for yourself? You're not voting for yourself? Did you
I
say
did, I
aye?
said aye.
Okay, good, okay.
said aye.
Opposed? No. Abstain? Passes 5-0. Okay. Perfect. Again, I err on the side of more communication than less, so,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think we can have these conversations, and to the extent that anyone on the board wants to talk to either Matt or I about what we're seeing or what we're hearing, we can also break down and provide updates on these meetings on the 7th, 14th, and 28th as well. Then going back to the agenda, budget process and meetings. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason that we put this on there was a recent change and discussion about the November 9th Budget Committee meeting. And so I had a conversation with Mr. Sun. I think you had one with him as well. And so the Budget Committee, I believe, has canceled their meeting.
Yeah, so
November 9th?
in looking at the calendar and looking at how much time the board will have to deliberate and make decisions on the budget, which I feel like is really important, right? And looking at the amount of time the budget committee will have had the budget, like, we will have had the budget in being able to react or make motions on the budget the least,
Yeah.
right?
Which is important, right?
And so the original budget committee schedule had the budget committee deliberations beginning November 9th. And when looking at the schedule, and given that a November 16th meeting was originally optional for the budget committee,
Right.
it made sense to cancel the 9th and have them shift the meeting to the 16th, which extends our time to review the budget by essentially 2 weeks,
Okay.
Which is great.
which is
I think
great.
it's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
It is,
Thank you.
because now, I mean, we have the budget in our hands now.
Yep.
Right? We're going to start our joint reviews tomorrow and next Tuesday, right? Additionally, we're gonna have our next board meeting. We have a board meeting on the 8th,
Well, that was the question mark.
a
Do we
board meeting
want
on
to
the-
continue to have the board
100%.
meeting on the 8th?
100%.
Okay.
We're
What's
going
the-
to need that board meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the board budget meeting. on
We
And that's
do-
gonna be for voting.
I believe Mr. Polanski's not able to make that meeting.
I'm not.
We are absolutely going to need that meeting.
And then Dr. Jedi, I
I
believe you
will
have a
not be there on
conflict
the
as well.
I have a conflict, so I won't be there, but Doug's the budget guy. He'll be there.
Okay. I'm fine to keep it. The question that I was gonna offer
You will not
was-
be able to get through voting in one meeting. There's no way.
Which one meeting?
So if we had the meeting on the 15th,
Yep.
which is our scheduled meeting,
Yep.
right? And if we're focusing just that meeting on budget, there's no way we'll get through all the voting.
So you'll need the 8th and follow up on the
Correct.
15th. I just want to make sure that we prepare the agenda to
We will
represent that.
also have, I mean, right, so we'll have other business items that we need to address and.
Yeah, but we can
Like for
lighten
student.
that, we can lighten that up. You know, there'll be second reads on some policies, but we can, streamline that to allow whatever, we'll know more after the 8th in terms of what you need on the 15th. So we'll structure it to make sure that we can get it all done.
And again, as I recall in years past, that meeting was typically pretty heavily focused on budget items. Anyway, we were going through electricity costs last year and still adjusting numbers as we went along, health insurance numbers and all of that, so. I do want to say publicly thank you to the budget committee for giving the school board this extra time. It's definitely appreciated. Cause I've started going through it in light of tomorrow and it's a lot.
It's a lot of a lot.
I've done a first read to kind of get out the screaming of like, oh my God. And now we move into,
We prepped you.
You did, but there were still some numbers there.
So when you
know?
see the real number.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Can I just?
I will, just to prepare you, I will have significant amount of questions on the budget. A significant amount.
Andrew, I did not expect anything
Yeah,
less.
like,
I'm just letting you know.
It's not a surprise.
you don't have to preface for that. That's
I
a
am
given.
prepared for that.
Just to clarify, so the budget binders, does everybody have their binder, their paper copy?
I do not.
I do not.
I apologize, they're in the office. I should have brought them tonight, but I did not. So
I'll
we
swing
have
by, I'll
those.
swing by and pick it
We
up.
have them in the office, so
Okay.
please. But you got the email copy, and then there is a binder with tabs, and so you're kind of organized from that. The budget committee, I delivered them to Andrew last.
Yes,
I
yep.
Thursday.
Lost track, last Thursday.
Yep.
And all the budget committee members got their copy.
They did.
So they all have it on paper. Remember, there had been a question a couple of years ago. They were asked to look electronically. We've given them the paper copy, so they got the same thing the board did at the same time. Not
I
as.
presented that very clearly as a draft, in case you didn't see that to the budget committee. I mentioned it at least 5 times.
It's always a
It's
draft.
part of the process.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a draft. It's
So,
a draft.
it's
That's fair.
definitely- yeah.
Well, people are already starting to ask questions at that meeting about what they saw, and then I'm like, guys, it's a draft.
And give us time. Give us
And
time.
I've
to
had it
go
for
in.
20 minutes, yeah.
So the other thing that's important to remind the board of is that you asked for this. You said, tell us what you need, and that's exactly what you're getting. So
Yep.
there has not been a filter on this because the board asked to see the full request. So when the admin team is there and the directors are there, they'll be able to present what they've asked for, why they've asked for it, and they're ready for all the questions that you want to bring on. And if we don't have an answer that night, we'll get back to you the next time with an answer. So yes, the budget is higher. What you're seeing has not been filtered, whereas in the past, certainly in my time here, it's always been pre-filtered before you got it. That's not the case this year, so, but it's all part of the process.
Sounds good. All right, so we have now had our budget process and meeting discussion. We can move into school board comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, as discussed in the correspondence, I went to the meeting of the Hudson Litchfield Rotary, and I met with, it was a small meeting, it was only about 6 people. They said it was one of their lesser attended meetings. But they were very interested in finding more residents of Litchfield to join the Rotary. They're a small but mighty club, and they do a lot of community service and offer support. And very, very nice people, very interested in volunteering, in town and working with our schools. They do a lot of they have a lot of opportunities for students. They do, the Rotary Club just internationally does trips to different countries. Mr. Urrutia was talking about, service trips where you go, students go to South America and build a house, or, they help out in that kind of way. So it sounded like a really good opportunity. They also have presentations at their meetings, so they meet twice a month. Once in Hudson, and then they have a dinner meeting every month out and about to support local businesses. So I brought everyone back a magazine from Mr. Urrutia.
A little light reading.
A little light reading for you if you're interested. And I have a stack of flyers here. I also told them that I would send them the email contacts for different organizations in town too, so that they can reach out and hopefully boost up their membership. So
Do they offer scholarships too?
they do. So every year we have, I think it's 1 or 2 Campbell students get a Rotary scholarship every year. So it'd be great to kind of pay them, to boost their membership, so that they're interested in becoming more of a Litchfield and Hudson group. Right now it's mostly people from Hudson who are members.
Cool, that's great.
So, yeah.
Other school board comments?
One other comment, actually, back to the budget, just why I think of it. That's a question for you, Mr. Totten, right? It's throwing off my initial look at the budget, but I noticed that vacant positions, which I know there are several, they're all listed as $0 in the budget.
So
And in years past, there's been a dollar amount with those vacant positions.
I believe there still is. So there's vacant position which would show up as like employee ID 0, and then down in the notes, it tells you, like, if there's more than one open, it will say, 8 more additional vacant positions with a number. I believe there's a number next to it. So I'm just trying to,
Okay, I'll go back and take a look at that, and look at employee 0 and see what I see.
yeah, so employee 0 is definitely the vacant one.
I mean, there are several rows throughout each section of the budget that lists, 14 paras and whatever, and it's $0 next to multiple rows of budget.
Yeah, I'll check in on this, and then if it's not how I'm saying, I'll have Holly kind of email out as a way to describe how she put that in there.
All right, thank you.
Any other school board comments?
Just, I missed the meeting thing. We had a meeting this week with the Economic Development Committee. A lot of talk around strengths and weaknesses in Litchfield as far as attracting business and attracting people to the town based on mostly infrastructure, right? We don't have town sewer, we don't have easy access to get here. So there'll be probably going to be a survey over the next couple of months to the townspeople of what they want to see in Litchfield, whether that's more businesses, what kind of businesses, more housing, multifamily housing, that sort of stuff. That will come out probably in the next couple of months.
So
I'm
just,
still trying.
oh, sorry, but just real quickly back to that. So I'm looking at GMS, the para monitor salaries. So there are 14 vacant positions, and then there are a lot less than 14 that are filled. So if we added up the ones that are filled, it wouldn't bring us to that 424,000. But if you multiply 14 by the 0 employee, which is the 15,661, and then you added up the rest, then it would bring you to that sum.
Why isn't it just clear in the budget like it always has been? But we can take it offline,
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not, I think it's always been a little bit tricky to get the vacant ones in there, because you have to manually put them in there too.
I was just gonna say, I'm still trying to figure out when my committees meet and how I get
Get
looped
on.
into them, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we can touch
Yeah.
base after. I sent you that link through the,
Yeah.
but we can touch base
Yeah.
on any specific questions. All right, manifest.
they all have one signature.
You're holding up the line here.
You're too heavy to move.
Are there any questions on the manifest? They were emailed to us in advance.
2 of them were emailed. I mean, there's a pile of salary and benefits and.
The payroll ones are pretty standard.
I believe there might be a smaller one that came out because that had some of the bills that,
Some
if you don't
utility
pay
bills or
online
something.
utility bills, then,
Yeah, that's in here too.
yeah.
There was one thing I saw in there, there was like 11,000, trying to go back to it right now. I can't remember if it was the bigger one or the smaller one. Oh, and this may just because I just started looking at these, the accessibility for New England, 11,600.
Yeah, so that's for the LMS lift.
Gotcha.
So which has been a little longer than normal to get that operational, because when they first came out, they installed it in a place which wouldn't be up to code.
Right,
So then we had to switch it
That was-
so
yeah.
it'd be up to code.
okay, I remember you mentioning that.
Doug, quick update. So the state was in, did the permitting?
So I was there for 90% of the time when the state was there. When I left, I said, "Are we all set?" And he said, "Yes." I haven't seen the official permit
Permit.
yet, but he had concluded everything by the time, that's why I left. And they were just kind of cleaning up at that point. So I haven't seen the actual official that it passed state inspection, but that's what I was led to believe by the state inspector, that we were in a good spot.
Is approval for the check to New Hampshire School Board Association for the superintendent search contained in, I think you said it was going through the regular
It should be.
kind of past approval process?
See that. I didn't see
So that would have been for part of it, so it would have been about, I think it was 5,000.
Mhm.
So,
I just want to make sure that's in there because I have the contract and we need to get payment over to them.
so I believe it's in there. So that was, the purpose was to put it in there. Thought I remember approving it online as well.
system.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing that.
But we'll make sure that goes through the process, right? We've got to get that over to them sooner than
Yeah, so
later.
we can, I'll double check on it tomorrow. If you want, we can run it by itself and then have 3 people come in and sign it and get it. Our goal was to have it be part of this.
Yeah, I mean, the board has already approved it by a vote, but yes, we can formalize with signatures.
I mean, if people want to do a vote on it right now to authorize us to send it out tomorrow as well.
So moved.
Second, any questions? All those in favor of authorizing Mr. Totten to issue a check for $5,000 to NHSBA for the superintendent search tomorrow, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500, just in case it's not in there. I did not see it either, which is why I was asking.
Good question.
All right, we've done school board comments manifest. We'll move into community input. The school board will open the community input. It's before 8 o'clock because we are at the end of our agenda. This can be on any non-agenda items. Comments and statements may be made on matters of public concern directly related to the district's policies, and public commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, and identify the first and last name of the commenter. So anyone who would like to make a public comment is welcome to.
And just by point of order, while Mr. Ball takes a seat, we need the manifest 3 signatures before we go
Yeah.
out of public?
Yes,
Yes.
we're moving.
Joe Cabral, Brookdale Drive. Okay, I'm gonna back you way up, okay? I went to a selectman meeting, I asked Kevin Lynch, when a town goes for the fire department or anything, how many bids do you solicit? His answer is usually the minimum of 3. Now, okay. Now why, as a school board, do you ask, when you put out for bids, how many do you get? For the school, that's what I'm backing you out to, the elementary school. There's only 3 years here that's original to it, so, I think. So when you would put it out for bid, how many bids did you?
That well,
So this is public comment, so you're certainly willing and able to provide comment and ask questions, but we don't necessarily respond to the questions. We take the time to research it and get back to you.
All right, you can
Yep.
get back to me, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay,
All right, you don't
So
have to.
question 1, yep.
This is what I was asking Andrew to write down and then bring it to you, but it didn't happen that way. Okay, so that's the thing, one of the ones I want to know. If you only took one, is it the one that designed your school now? That's my other question. Okay? Because here's what I feel. If you're not getting enough bids, maybe 2 minimums, you're not giving the town a good look over for stuff. Now, I watched the school board meeting about shuffling the kids. And you only had the one person that did your elementary school drawing. Why wasn't that put out for the same thing, for the movement of the kids around this year? Okay, that's my other one.
do you mean the consolidation?
Okay,
I just want to make sure I understand what you mean by shuffling.
all right. When you started to talk a couple of months ago about moving the kids around, taking some from GMS, putting something like a junior, senior high school,
Okay, yep.
that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
You didn't put that out for bid. You only went to the one. From the one my thing is with the one you pick, I didn't see any numbers or anything with him. He flew off the seat of his pants as far as I'm concerned. And it's not good for the town. You're not, there again, it's not good for the town. You're not giving them more of a, spectrum to having more people come in and vote for that. Because you're looking for trust. This is the things that, people look for. I mean, that what's been going on. Let's see, I think I can skip this one. Okay, that's the trust part. Okay, this is for Mr. Jetty. You stated that the high school was leveling off between 300 plus minus kids. I for fact know for the last 8 years that our school enrollment was going down. Why do you pop it now and say, okay, it's going down, when people now hear that and they say, well, why aren't we doing a junior, senior high school? Because there are people that, since got their tax bills, have put that on there. You know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out if our enrollment's going down for the last 8 years from the elementary up, it's gonna be lower at the other end. You know, you pop it into the last couple of meetings. I thought that was kind of dumb. We should, you know, that should have been helping you look at a junior, senior high school from that point. But you didn't. And there again, that's coming from trust, from him into you guys. You know, that's what you guys want, you to trust you people. And let me tell you, Andrew, I wish I had called you up and had you in my garage Saturday. There was 8 neighbors on my street came to me and were bullshit. Okay? Because they heard they started it, then I said, well, they backed away from the combining the schools. And then they got their tax bill, and they say, why the hell aren't we looking at it more? You know? And that's what I got hit with, and that's on my street. You know, and I know there's others probably talking the same thing, because it's been on the What's Up page. I've seen it. So like I said, if you want trust, then I think you'll get more of it if you do these things like putting an addition on. You solicit more than one bid. That's all. You know, I mean, it's only helping the taxpayer seeing you're doing a thorough job. Okay, when you do one, and especially that's the same company that did our overrun of the middle school, no? Okay. But, you know, you don't stick with one. That's what I'm saying.
Can I respond to some of?
Well, and I have the numbers too. Joe, it might be helpful. Why don't you give me a call so I can answer the questions directly and give you what we've been doing. But I can tell you that we put an RFQ out across the region. So it covered not only New Hampshire, although we had a preference toward New Hampshire architects, but we were searching for anybody who was interested in the project. We described the project, what are called the owner expectations. We put that out. We received four architectural firms who put in that they were interested in the project. We interviewed all 4 and we selected one. So we did follow a process where it was open to anybody who wanted to bid. We interviewed and we selected Kyle. So Kyle is the person that was hired in a fair and open process, Barker Associates, and Kyle's actually been doing a very good job for us, and he did not have any involvement in the middle school project.
Okay.
So.
But I'm just saying, like with the bid thing, see, now people would have known that you did something like that you did solicit that, that you just didn't go with the one.
Right.
You
We
know what I'm
always
saying?
do.
Then there's more trust there.
Yeah, and we did the same
But when
process.
they keep hearing like you're taking the same architect for this, you know, one thing to the other, well, that's what they hear, you know.
But if we got the questions, then we could answer the questions.
Yeah.
You know, we put out a lot of information, we spend a lot of time in our meetings.
As long as you're getting the bids like
Just to
that.
clarify though, the architect, once the architect is retained for the project, right? So these other components that you're asking about, when we evaluate these other options about consolidating, he's the architect of record for the project, right? So that is the person that has already gone out to bid that we are then relying on. He's the consultant for those things. So when you're asking, why didn't you go back out to bid on that? That wouldn't have been a logical point for us to go back out to bid for something, because he's the architect of record that's working on the project at that point. So meaning at the point that they initiated the contact saying, hey, we need to solve a problem for an elementary school, you know.
So you only stick with the one once you've got the one there.
Well, it's the same project, right? It's the same project. It's just, we've looked at, I mean, if you look back at the beginning, we looked at 5 or 6 different options, right? That involved all, you know, renovating the school, new site, same site, all that stuff.
Yeah, but this was the involvement of moving the kids. This was a total
Yep, we
different.
looked into that. We authorized $10,000
Thanks.
for him to do additional work
know.
to explore that option.
And to me, that should have went out. That's, you know, that's what people look at.
But that's what I'm trying to clarify for you,
Yeah.
though. I just want to make sure that you understand that's part of this project. So that already did go out to bid, right? So all those bids came in, they were retained to try to help us solve the problem of what do we do with this elementary school that needs something done for it, right?
But when you watch the video, you only see the one person talking about it.
You have to go back, because all of that was done in public session at the Facilities Improvement Committee. So if you go back, and I can actually get you links to those meetings, so you can watch that. So another thing that went out to bid was who the construction manager for the GMS project would be. We had at least 3 companies that bid. They sat right here in this room at that chair.
Right.
And they presented to the Facilities Committee, and then the Facilities Committee selected Bonnet, Page and Stone as the company that best would be able to meet our needs.
Right.
And so now what we have is Bonnet, Page and Stone is the construction manager working with Kyle Barker. So both of them were selected in a competitive process. And they are who we have contracted with to bring the project forward.
We've also.
Yeah, I think,
process for
and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, what you're most concerned with here is when we decided to look at consolidation, should that have gone out to somebody else to look at? The issue with that is we're kind of on a time constraint here, and I understand your point, but Barker knows the most about what was happening at GMS. He had sort of more institutional knowledge of what it was going to be. If we go out to bid, it takes a period of time, and then they're going
Right,
to need to get
that
up
I
to
do
speed.
know.
So, I think that's the reason that we didn't put it
And
back.
it's also not free. Like, they don't go do all of this work just because you say, hey, I want you to bid on this project. So they don't go do all this legwork to say, let me evaluate all these things too. So if we were to start over and look for a different architect, right, they have to familiarize themselves with all of the work that Barker's already done on behalf of us.
Because that was one of the things I was getting hit with. Why aren't they going out for more bids? So I said, well, I'll ask. I'm not afraid to come and ask.
And we appreciate the question.
Appreciate it,
The
yeah.
question is important because then it gives us a chance to provide the answer and be able to provide the backup to the answer.
Yeah. See, I think that's something maybe else that, because they were saying, why ain't they looking at the consolidation?
We did.
On, since the tax bill. See,
Yep.
it's on there again. And you can say, go look at those videos. Those people won't watch
And-
those
and that's the problem.
stupid things.
That's the issue. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
But I do think it would be good for you to connect with Dr.
Yeah.
Jetty because he can give you those links and then maybe if you talk to them again, you can bring that
Well, I don't care
information
about the
back.
links. It's just that, I'm just wondering,
Yeah. But I think part of our job is we need to inform the community as a whole. So,
Right.
we need to do a better job of making sure that
right, that's
you're
out
the guy
there.
that in your neighborhood that everybody goes to,
Right.
that you have the information too.
Because see, I wasn't the only one that was getting hit with that, and I'm saying, well, I'll go and ask,
Yeah.
Yep,
I mean, that's something
absolutely.
maybe to put on there, that they can see, like, okay, this is the school project we're going with.
Yep.
These are the amount of,
Yeah.
it's just something else to update the thing on it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Right.
No, and I think it's great that you came to ask the question. So
Absolutely.
thank
Yeah.
you.
But that's it. And that way, Mary, I think you'll gain more trust with the people too. 'Cause- And Andrew, thank you for the other night,
You're welcome.
okay?
Thanks for coming.
Because that's all I wanted.
Yeah,
And it was, I didn't want you to answer it then. I just wanted you to write it down,
sure.
bring it here, and I was gonna come in and then I would've got that,
Well, thanks for coming and asking your questions. It's important.
okay?
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. That's it.
Is there anyone else from the community that would like to provide input tonight? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close community input. And I believe this is the last one.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
We'll get you a key next time.
Seriously.
Wait, I
hopefully-
don't even have a kid.
I want to know why it wasn't, why it was locked.
This room was locked also. I knocked on the door and Kim let me in because the police, there's nobody at that.
Nobody at dispatch tonight?
No.
Thank you.
Take care.
And I've never seen this locked. Doug's like, oh yeah, it's always unlocked. Just go right on in. And yeah, no, not tonight.
I do have a fob for that door.
You have a fob?
I do. Yeah,
You're special.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
You have a
So,
fob
but I
too?
wasn't here at my normal time,
Well,
so.
we are gonna go ahead and move into non-public
always
session
unlocked, right?
It
pursuant
is always
to
unlocked.
RSA 91A3, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted, B, the hiring of any person as a public employee, C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting, and then D through I, we're saying C citation. I believe for tonight, we have a conversation regarding, we're going in under A and C. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just for public awareness. Is there a motion to go into non-public?
So made.
And I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, 500. All right, we are now heading into non-public session. Thank you for watching the meeting tonight, whether it's tonight or the next day or whatever. Our next meeting will be tomorrow night, November 2nd, where we will be doing our first review of the budget, followed by a meeting on November 7th, followed by a meeting November 8th, and then if you're not sick of us, followed with a meeting on November 15th. So I hope everyone has a good night. Thanks very much.